What's up, guys? It's Johnny here, and this module is going a little bit beyond the foods that we eat, the exercise that we do whenever we're looking to drop fat, get healthier, have more energy, build more muscle tissue, whatever it is, maybe. Like a lot of the emphasis is put on uh, the diet that we follow and the exercise programs that we do or don't do, but not many people are talking about stress and how that can impact us sometimes positively, but more often than not in a negative way. So I'm just going to highlight some of the things that stress can do to the body and how it affects your long-term health and our ability to, like I said before, to drop fat, have more energy, build more muscle tissue, and essentially just look and feel a little bit better about ourselves. So obviously, each one of us is unique. We always encounter many different stresses in our day-to-day life. And these stresses can come from various sources or events in our life. So, examples of various stresses. So, we can look at emotional stress, we can have issues in relationship, we can have work stress, pressure from the boss, deadlines. We can also have financial stress, bills to pay, mortgages, and things like that. Even things like traffic, getting stressed out every day in traffic can negatively impact us. And I've put children on here as well because obviously I'm dealing with a lot of dads. And as you all know, children can be quite stressful, albeit, worth it. They still can be a huge stress on us. We can also experience stress on our physical body. So, examples of physical stress: lack of sleep. Okay, if we're only getting 3 to 4 hours sleep, that is a huge stress on our bodies. We can't recover and we can't regenerate if we're not getting enough sleep. Exercise is a stress, and depending on how much of it you do, it can be a good thing. But if you're doing too much of it, that can negatively impact you as well. And I've also put on there lack of exercise because obviously our body, we're designed to move. We've got, a big pair of lungs. We've got lots of muscles. We're designed to move on a daily basis, and not moving our bodies falls into us being in a stressed situation. Okay, poor posture is stressful to our body. We've got that forward lean going on. We're not breathing properly. That is a stress to our body. These are just things that many people don't think about. Actually, being sat down all day is a stress to the body, as I mentioned before. We've got over 600 muscles in our body, we've got over 200 bones. We are built to move and move regularly. And when you look at people who are sat down 8 to 10 hours a day, our bodies just are not designed to do that. So that is just actual stress to our body. A poor diet, the food that we eat, the processed foods and junk food and high sugar foods and high trans fat foods are very, very stressful to our body, particularly onto our liver, affecting our blood sugars, etc. Actually, being on a diet can be quite stressful for a lot of people. The thought of restricting certain foods or eating a certain amount of calories can psychologically be a stress to many, many people, which they don't realise. This is why sort of diets don't really work, particularly drastic ones, because they're not sustainable. And usually people end up worse off than they were before when they start the diet. Also falling into the diet category is alcohol. As enjoyable as alcohol is, when consumed on a regular basis, aside from the calorific intake of the alcohol, it's a huge stress to our body, particularly our liver again. And then there's other stressors that we can experience from, I guess, our own mindset and our own thought patterns. So things like fear, doubt, guilt, anger, resentment towards other people, what they did, what they didn't do in the past. These are all quite stressful. Self-criticism, poor self-esteem, all sort of fall into the bracket of anxiety, worry, and fear. Okay? So there's probably only covered 50% of all the stresses that many people can experience, but just understand that they can come from various sources, depending on our mindset, depending on our jobs, depending on our life situation. We all have a number of stresses that we have to deal with on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis. Now, just have a think about the various stressors in your personal life from all them different sources. And just imagine that you're going to put them all in a bucket. As I mentioned before, it's highlighted on this picture here: relationship, finances, family. I like the one there that says arsehole boss. Now, I'm not sure many people would tell the boss that they're an arsehole, but you know what I mean. Work stress can fall into that category: nutrition, training, lack of sleep, etc. Now, just understand that the more full your stress bucket is, the more challenging it is to lose body fat, to have more energy, and to essentially be healthy. If your stress bucket is full to the brim, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to stay healthy, follow a regular exercise plan, eat well, take care of yourself, and generally feel good about yourself. So just a bit of a sort of cover on what happens, a really brief overview, I guess, a really simplified version of what happens when we experience stress. And these can be very real stresses. Like a normal stress response would be a tiger chasing after you. Obviously, it's within your best interest to have this stress response so that you can run like hell, or if someone pulls a knife on you in the street or wants to chase you or go after you. These are all very real threats, and this is where the stress response can be extremely useful. But we can also have perceived stress as well. So again, it goes back to that mindset stuff that I covered. Worrying about the future, worrying about the bills, being resentful or angry towards other people. These are all stress responses too, to various degrees. Being stuck in traffic, getting angry. These are all stressors on the body. Now, so what happens when the stress response, when we get real or perceived? We get a signal from our hypothalamus in the brain that the stressor is here, it's coming. So from that situation, we'll get an increase in blood pressure. Get an increase in blood pressure to pump more blood around the body so we can fight or flight. As a result of that, at the same time as that, our heart rate increases. Now, cortisol, which is our stress hormone, is released from our adrenal glands, which sits just above the kidneys. Now, we get a release of cortisol because cortisol increases our blood sugar. It frees up stored energy, usually from the liver and the muscle tissue, because we need some energy because you're perceiving this threat and you either need to fight or flight, okay? So as I mentioned before, the cortisol goes up, this increases our blood sugars, this will make energy available to our muscles, and this is regardless of whether we actually need it or not. Now, while all this is happening, our digestion gets shut down and our immune system, our immune function gets down-regulated. We don't need to be thinking about digesting food. We don't need to be thinking about regenerating and repairing and taking care of ourselves when we're in a stressful situation. Our body's got, more important matters to deal with. We need to fight for our lives, or we need to do one, we need to run. When the stressor is gone, or as it subsided or decreased, things gradually come back to normal. The heart rate will come back down, the blood pressure will gradually come back down. The blood sugars often drop extremely low after a stress response because they've gone up so high. Think of this as when you've had a really stressful situation, you've experienced you've experienced some deadlines at work, you're really up against it, you're up against the wall, you've been really grinding to make this deadline, and then all you want to do after that is pig out on food or sugar or booze, usually the high calorie selections, and this is because your body really wants to replenish all that blood sugar that has dropped dramatically after a big spike, a big increase from that stressful situation. So this is what's happening with many, many people who are struggling with particularly weight loss goals and generally just feeling healthy about themselves. So let's just go back to your personal stress bucket. Now, again, relationships, work stress, lack of sleep, dehydration, from a mindset point of view, fear, doubt, guilt, anger. These all activate the stress response in your body, whether you're aware of it or not, okay? Now, they'll do it in varying degrees. I'm not saying like a fearful thought will send your blood pressure sky high, but if you're constantly activating this stress response throughout the day, just look what's happening to your physical body. So we come back to this one. Blood pressure is constantly going up. The heart rate is going up. We're always getting this spike in blood sugar. Now you might start to relate to this if you are experiencing a lot of stress in your life. Diets are very difficult to stick to because you're experiencing stress at work. Because you're experiencing stress at work, you might not be sleeping very much. If you have children, you might not be sleeping very much. You wake up the next day, you're tired, you're hungry, you don't want to think about drinking water, you reach for the coffee, you reach for the carbs, and on and on and on. That provides us a temporary spike in energy, followed by a big drop, a big slump, and this vicious cycle keeps going on and on and on and on. So most people, it's not that they can't stick to a diet, it's not that they're not disciplined and they don't want it enough, it's just that their stress bucket is so full that, any thought of, eating well or training well just gets puts to the bottom of the list in terms of priorities. So just understand that all these various sort of sources of stress all activate that stress response in varying degrees. And if you're constantly switching that stress response on throughout the day, you're going to get the constant spikes in the blood pressure, the heart rate, the blood sugars. You're going to be more prone to reaching for booze, reaching for alcohol. And it's just going to make things really, really difficult from a health and fitness point of view, particularly if you want to follow a smart training program or an eating program. And by now you should start to realise why it gets so difficult, particularly if you're experiencing lots of stress. Now I will say that some stress, obviously we need some stress in our life. Exercise is a good example. It's a really good stress. It pushes our body to get stronger, to build new muscle tissue. From a cardiovascular point of view, we need to work our hearts to a certain degree to get stronger, to get some oxygen around the body. And in terms of other stresses, we need these stresses in our life. We need goals to reach. We need to learn new things. We need to be pushed, and we need to grow and evolve. So it's not saying that stress is a bad thing. It's just understanding that when our stress buckets are full, it becomes really, really difficult to achieve our health and fitness goals. In particular, when it comes to weight loss. So quick action steps is just really to write down all your personal stressors in your life. It might be some of the things that I mentioned before. You might want to add some things onto there. Write down every stressor that you can think of, whether it be bills, whether it be dehydration, whether it be a shitty diet, whether it be too much alcohol, too much sugar, whether it be emotional stress from your partner or your ex, whatever it may be. Write all them down. And number 2 is just see how many of these stresses that you really have control over. Okay, what are the things that you can take control over? If you sat down a large part of the day, is there really an opportunity for you to get up and move more? If you don't drink any water, but you drink 9 cups of coffee a day, is there a possibility of shifting that needle, drinking more water early in the day so you don't need as much coffee? Can you change your first meal of the day? Are you in control of that? So it's just highlighting how many of these things that you can control. And then moving on to number 3, there's obviously things in our life that we cannot control, okay? So there's things like bills, mortgage payments, work stress, etc. Now, with the ones you can't control, think about how you can decrease that stress response or handle these stressors better. And I'll talk about this more in the group, but things like breathing exercises, meditation, positive visualization, when you're under the cosh off the boss or you've got a deadline or you've got the deal to make, what kind of things can you do to better handle that stress? It might even be taking a walk, it might be taking 5 minutes to do some deep breathing, it might even be just drinking some water. Okay? So I hope this video has made sense. Again, it's just a really brief overview of the stress response, but just understand that if you've got a stress bucket that's full to the brim, it's going to be very, very difficult. It's always going to seem like it's an uphill battle when you're chasing your health and fitness goals, whether that be building strength, building muscle, losing body fat. And again, it's not completely eliminating these stressors. It's taking control of the ones that you can, doing something about it, And you'll find then any nutrition program that you follow and an exercise regime that you commit to will be much easier to do because you're in a less stressful situation and you're not activating that stress response multiple times throughout the day, sending the blood pressure up, sending the heart rate up, sending the blood sugars up and down on a roller coaster, okay? So, get to it. Action points, like I just mentioned, write all the stressors down. What can you control, and the ones that you can't control, come up with some strategies how you can manage them better and start to decrease that stress response. Speak to you soon, guys.